You are watching Teso Vibez TV.
I have colleagues, JJ Odong is the coordinator for Alliance for National Transformation, Lango Sub-Region. Governor Ogongson is PFF governor for Lango Sub-Region. It's a pleasure to have this press briefing. We completed Acholi Sub-Region yesterday evening. Yesterday we did Agago district and Pader. Unfortunately, there are places we had planned to go to in Agago and Pader, which we were not able to go to because it rained and a certain part got cut off, like Patongo and Niraparwo. The only area which is left now in Acholi Sub-Region is Gulu City, which will be doing end of December. So tomorrow we are going to start with the tour of Lango Sub-Region. It's going to be, Tuke and Aleptong. Then the following day, 11th, will be in Rira district, and in the afternoon we'll be doing Kwania. Then we have 12th November, we'll be spending it in Apache, and then 13th November, Kole, Dokoro, and Amorata. And then we will be leaving to Teso sub-region. But again in December, we'll be coming back for Rira city, because we are going to do the cities at the end, or cities at the end. Acholi sub-region had more or less the same challenges that we faced in other sub-regions where we have been. We are going to start tomorrow. We'll be able to see whether the same challenges elsewhere are the challenges which Lango sub-region faces. Basically, lack of drugs. There's no place where we found any government facilities where they have drugs. Low levels of the educational systems, poor pay for teachers, lack of jobs for youth. Even where the few jobs which are got, we've not been to any district so far, and we do ask every district we go to whether there is a system where they can access jobs without paying a bribe. No district have we been to so far where you find a clear, transparent system where a young man or woman can be able to get a job just by doing an interview, and the moment they are successful, be able to get a job without bribing. I really hope we'll be able to get to maybe 1 or 2 or 3 districts in this country. But the way the trend is, it's quite worrying, because by tomorrow I think we'll be starting the 40th district. So if you find out of the 39 we've been so far in, out of 147, that none yet where you can find that experience that a young man or woman can get a job without paying a bribe. It's quite frightening. And we keep expressing that. The levels of poverty, everywhere we've been so far. We go to towns, we go to rural communities, and the cries are similar. Inability to cater for their basic needs. And then issues of injustice. There are areas specifically where you find that heavy in terms of land. Areas like Unyoro, areas like Buganda, and then the east, western side of Acholi, mostly Nwoya, Amuru, where you find problems of land, and poor people basically are highly vulnerable, because accessing justice is one of the biggest challenges people have, who are grieved, either whose land has been taken or properties have been taken by the rich and powerful. The dilemma of our situation is that if you don't have money and the systems have been compromised, where you cannot have the investigative agencies of the state, CID, investigating in an uncompromising professional way. That doesn't exist. So if you don't have money to bribe, your case is not going to be well investigated. And therefore, that's the beginning of the weakness in the system. Even if your case ends up in court, most courts are highly compromised. So again, if you don't have money, that's a challenge. So basically, people who are poor in this country are highly vulnerable. Someone is rich, can take your property, your land, or whatever else they've taken, and you won't have any, you won't be accorded justice the way systems function now. Now, the danger in that, of course, if it is not curtailed and reversed, then who knows? Worst case scenario, we could end up like a country like Haiti. Haiti has been independent for more than 200 years, but they don't have systems of governance. They don't have strong institutions. They don't have systems of delivery of services. They don't have protection for the citizens. So a country like Haiti, they're powerful. You have money, you have access to weapons, they have gangs. You rule wherever you are. My hope is that we don't end up like that. But clearly, that's the direction there seems to be, the culture. People who have money are powerful. They can literally do anything and go out with it. The sense of impunity that is in this country. And the poor are marginalized, and they almost are not protected, highly vulnerable. That's where contention really needs to be focused by anybody in this country who wants to see a country that has fairness, has justice, has keep focused on that. We should not lose sight of that, because we have seen those trends in a significant number of countries in Latin America and a few here on the African continent, where the wealthy rule, whether in government, whether outside government. And the worst case scenario in such cases is that eventually you even get gangs. You know, people who are wealthy can create gangs of people who have weapons, and they can really do whatever they want to do. We really hope we won't end up that way. And agriculture being one area where ordinarily any sensible government, any government that wants to develop people, needs to focus on education. There's failure, clear failure in regard to that. There are low levels of, or low standards of in the educational system. Poor pay for teachers. The second area ordinarily in any country that focuses on developing the people is health. It's clear failure in that, in the sense that there are no drugs in hospitals, the health service systems are broken down, the healthcare workers are completely, they lack motivation because of the environment in which they operate. And then the third basic normally is food security. To have people who are able to eat well, but also have 3 meals a day. Most places, at least the peasants, wherever you find them, most of them cannot afford to have more than, and the town dwellers mostly. The town dwellers are even worse off than the people who are in the rural areas. Town dwellers, you'll hardly get many people who eat 3 meals a day. Even those who eat 1 meal a day, most of them, it is, it's a struggle. And then poor roads. Yes, those who are lucky enough, like in Bunyoro where they have the oil roads, you find that in that area, at least they have that kind of advantage. But you get off where the tarmac is and you get into the rural areas, the roads are absolutely a nightmare. Last night, last night we passed through one of the worst roads that we've been to so far. The road between Achoribur and Rira. Actually, we were planning to get to Achoribur. We never even reached Achoribur because we found the place blocked, so we had to turn around and come. It's one of the worst roads that we have been to so far in the rest of the country where we have been. And of course that has an impact on crop prices. It has an impact on those who are doing farming and even trade, because if you are using that kind of road, transportation costs go high. And so that's what we've seen. That's what as we concluded the tour in Acholi land. Now tomorrow we are starting with Lango, and I've already indicated to you the areas we are going to go to. We will want to find out if Lango is doing any better in terms of roads, whether the educational standards are higher than other sub-regions. We will be trying to ask people to find out if they have got drugs in hospitals, what the health services are to them. We'll also be trying to find out in the districts where we go, whether there is any of the districts where young people can get jobs without paying bribes. We will be wanting to find out if there are any issues of injustices on land. And we'll also be wanting to find out if there is any support in terms of those who are in agriculture, because agriculture holding about 70% of the population. Because we always want to, we engage with people. The nature of our campaign is through engagements. We engage with the communities where we go, in town settings, in rural areas. We ask questions, we get to know what pains people. We've been asking people their dreams in a number of places where we go to. We'll also be doing the same thing in Lango. And then we also offer what we believe are solutions to those problems are. And according to our manifesto, our solutions as we offer them to the people is that one, disciplined government. That's at the core. Whatever else you want to do as a government in form of solutions, you first have to have people who are honest, people who care about people who care about the country, first and foremost, for you to succeed. And therefore start with eliminating corruption. Because the moment you eliminate corruption, you save a significant portion, even in the first 1 or 2 years, a significant portion of what we lose, which is $2 billion United States dollars every year. You can imagine when you save that, then you inject it into the critical areas like education, like health, like agriculture, and then the supportive infrastructure, energy, road networks, rail, water, transportation, water provision for human beings and for animals. So tomorrow we will roll out, and we will be giving a briefing at the end of Lango to know whether what happens elsewhere is, again, what exists within Lango. And wherever we've gone, we've been asking people to terminate Gen 7's administration on the 15th of January, because NRM cannot solve the problems. Gen 7 can no longer solve any problem. It's actually become part of the problem. And any day longer that he stays in power, the closer and closer we get to what could actually become a crisis in this country. Being a regime which has basically planted or nourished and systematically built a culture of impunity, a culture of manipulation and deception, the use of money in politics, and the use of the authoritative instruments of coercion. So we have a situation that we really need to handle carefully. My hope is that all of us who are involved in politics need to know that we are dealing with a delicate situation, and therefore, and I believe, using the skills that we have to see how we can manage that situation after Gen 7 is retired, hopefully, if the population really reads our messages well and comes on board and we retire him, then how to manage a country to ensure that we establish stability and then move the country on track. We talk about discipline of those who are in leadership, honesty and integrity. They are critical. There are people who may not understand that, but there is no party which can put this country back on track unless it has leaders who are disciplined, who care about justice, who care about equality before the law. Those are things you can't touch, but which are so critical in the management of a country that can prosper. Prosperity is not only in wealth, prosperity is also in the state of being of the human beings. In one of the areas where I was reminding people about a new vision story I read about 2, 3, or 4 years ago, I don't remember exactly when it was, that specified that about 14 million people, that is out of need for compensations, and which you have talked about, Choriland, Lango, and Teso. Yes, it's a key area, but we look at it in two different ways. One, there's the issue of justice and fairness, but there's also issue of sustainability. But to me, beyond that, an area which many people don't pay attention to, but which to me is almost a core, dignity of a human being, in as far as I'm concerned, is one of the most critical things for the existence of any human being. And the productive process is part and parcel of the dignity of a person. When a person gets a job and they're able to earn money and cater for themselves and their families without having to beg anybody, if a person gets money to inject in a business, whether it is crop, whether it is animal husbandry, whether it is whatever form of business, and is able to generate incomes to cater for himself and his or her family without having to beg, that's at the core of dignity of a human being. We are wired that way. God wired us that way. When you work and you earn and you take care of yourself and your family, that gives you a sense of dignity. So in whatever you do, in whatever form you call it, whatever terms you may use, you have to be focusing on that as the ultimate. Because you see, if you have a population in a country which is dignified, then you can focus them on the larger picture. How does the country advance to reach where you want it to go? All these countries which are developed are driven by that. You'll find that the Chinese focus and said, in this number of years, we want to be this. And you can see they are going there. Whether it is South Koreans, whether it is Singapore, people whom we find are dedicated to an end state where they want to reach as a people, as a nation. The internal domestic environment in terms of the livelihoods of people, plus the dignity when they are engaged in the productive process. So to us, that's how we look at it. And therefore, engaging with communities and having discussions with them. And therefore, seeing if it is compensation in what form. Is it money? Is it cows? What is it? But you can also, you know, you can just give money and in a year you look for it, you don't see it. Highly possible. So you have to do things in such a way that you are not looking at only the justice part of it, but you are looking at the long-term aspects of it. How do you do both? Integrate them. And therefore have communities which, because once the individuals in a community are self-reliant, that community will become self-reliant, and then it starts building the sense of pride in people. This regime does things different. This regime breaks down people, breaks them to a point where they will bow simply to survive. Those are the two different approaches. Whether people understand them, I don't know. But to me, they seem to be so obvious. Because if people can reach a point of saying we have to bow to a regime to get services, what does that mean? It means that you must give up your dignity, you must give up your right to be a receiver of services because of the taxes you pay. Because it is to you by right. Services to you are by right because you pay taxes. But that concept seems to have been forgotten because it is like, if we don't bow, we won't get services. So it's people must make a choice. Do they want to fight for that right until it is reestablished? Or do they want to give up on their dignity and rights and bow? It's one or the other. I don't see a middle way. For us, we'll speak what we believe to be right, that we have to keep fighting until we create an environment in this country where people are able to get services from the taxes which they make, because there is a disciplined leadership, because there is a focused leadership, because there is a leadership which cares for the country, which cares for people. If there are enough people who make that conclusion and they keep fighting, we will get there. If we don't get enough people, then it means that the other culture will intensify. And therefore, everybody will have to keep bowing to someone to be able to get whatever to eat or how to exist. And that's what leads to countries to become like Haiti. Because remember, Haiti has been independent for more than 200 years. But to exist in Haiti, you must bow to a warlord, this one or the other one, even to be protected. It's a mess. We could easily end up in a mess unless hopefully the elite are able to wake up that fact and fight. 45, 47 million require psychiatric attention. It was a New Vision story, and it was based on research. So you can imagine, even if you have roads, even if you have whatever else you have in terms of infrastructure, but if you have a population that is really unhealthy at the point that they need psychiatric attention, that's huge. 14 million people, that's huge. So we have to look at prosperity not only in terms of the physical infrastructure, but the well-being of people. The manner in which they feed, the manner in which they think, the health in terms of the mind. And you can't have 14 million people requiring psychiatric attention unless they have an environment that is destabilizing to them. So development in terms of only infrastructure is really absolute, it's almost borders on criminal irresponsibility on those who are in government. Because roads, power, and other things which are infrastructure are only to facilitate the human being. The human being is the first, the core focal point where a country needs to focus to develop them. All other things that are, whether it is power, whether it is roads, whether it is hospitals, those are facilitators to the development of the human being. Once the human being is developed, the country develops. But NRM doesn't seem to know that. And the dilemma is that people also seem not to understand that that should be the core. But we have to keep pushing the message until we have a critical number that will be saying enough is enough. And then we terminate this regime on General Museveni on 15th of January. Thank you, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen of the press, for areas that would want to focus attention on as a government. 70% of the population is rural and is in agriculture. 2, food security is one of the basics if you want to focus on the development of a human being, a citizen. It is food security, it is education and training, and then health. Because once you take care of those 3, then basically you have the person whom you want to focus attention onto in terms of development. And that person at the same time is the instrument of development itself. Because once you have a well-educated, well-trained human being who is healthy, who feeds well, then in the first place, it creates the innovative and creative capabilities to heighten. A person is whole when all those 3 are together, are put together. Then the rest is implementing the plans that you have. Therefore, you have also to create the political management environment in which, 1, there is justice, there is fair play, there is accountability. And then backing up that person in whatever area of endeavor they are in. If they're in farming, whether it's livestock, whether it is crop, if they're in fishing, if they're in small-scale industries, if they are in manufacturing, if they are in the service industries like tourism, if they have a hotel or whatever. Now, once they go in that, then there are issues like financing. Financing, you have to ensure that you have got, for example, development funds. In this case, if you have UDB and any other banks that you can start, where they can access cheap financing to put into the enterprises in which they are. Because most of those enterprises, be it agriculture, be it small-scale industries, be it in services industry, like someone putting up a hotel for tourists, they need cheap financing. Long-term, low-interest rate. Once you have all those things in place, there's absolutely no way how a country cannot develop. Now, specifically in agriculture that you are talking about, the unfortunate thing is that the cooperative spirit literally collapsed. And I think that's the area of challenge. Because many of the people who are involved in agriculture do not have any idea as to how cooperatives used to operate. And people now tend to be individualistic. And yet, when you are a rural farmer and you are an individual, you are highly vulnerable. One, you cannot negotiate prices as an individual farmer. Maybe you have got 3, 4, 5, 10 acres. The middlemen will exploit you. The advantage of cooperatives was collective bargaining. Because you have got, if you have got a cooperative society of 5,000 farmers, 10,000 farmers, say in a whole district or in a sub-county, they are growing same maize. The cooperative union first, once they have a government which backs them up with resources, that's why we intend to re-establish the cooperative bank. They are trying on their own, but I get a sense that this government is not giving them any form of support. And yet, without a cooperative bank, the cooperative unions can't do, the cooperative societies cannot do much. The critical nature of a cooperative bank is that one, government can give backup in different ways, that they build storage facilities, modern storage facilities. It's a critical area. Because if you cannot store your crops, you are highly vulnerable to those who will want to manipulate prices, because you are fearful that your crop may spoil. But if you have got silos where you know that you can keep